For many weeks, the top drivers, when it comes to EGT3 Challenge Pro competition, have battled at a variety of circuits, whether it's the mountainous circuit at Bathurst, whether it's the technical circuits like Suzuka, or whether it's the speedy circuits like Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Now, with the championship coming into its closing stages, the pressure is on for the top drivers in the series to be able to perform on the big stage. Today, we head to Circuit de Barcelona to Catalonia to see how the second and last round of the campaign fares out here on EGT Canada. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Glenn Butt with our producer and Stephen Proudly as we get ready to see how the championship fares out with a few races to go. Barcelona and Zandvoort, the two races left on the docket, and the pressure has to be intense to say the very least with how the championship has fared out entering tonight, Glenn. Lots of pressure.
Oh, is there not lots of pressure? You're down to the wire, and with all that transpired at Laguna Seca, this is going to be a great race, and it's going to be a pivotal race for so many.
We'd like to take the time to remind you of the presenting sponsors for this series, Center Porsche Quebec, as well as Delta Autosport Quebec, as well as Distillery de Croix for their support of this respective series and the support they bring for what has been a busy campaign, to say the very least, on the schedule. And keep in mind, the championship has had its roller coaster of emotions, to say the very least, at times. It's one where some of the top contenders at moments, Glenn, have had their struggles. But now, with a very difficult place to pass such as tonight's circuit, there's going to be a lot of importance to score points, to say the least.
There's going to be a lot of importance. You're exactly right. Everybody's had their trials and tribulations, and it's a race of no mistakes, yet it's a track that you can have a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of the rumble strips and curbing that you want to stay away from on this track. So, as you mentioned, a tight track, and it's a challenging track. You've got to have patience.
And keep in mind, for a lot of the drivers, Glenn, there is some bounce back you have to consider when it comes to Laguna Seca. When it comes to WinterTech race, Laguna Seca should say. A lot of drivers were challenged there, Glenn, last time out.
They were, and we saw some changes in position at the top of the order, except for Superman. Of course, he's still at the top, but yeah, a lot of changes.
When it comes to Superman, that is John Van, who has been absolutely blistering quick for a majority of the races. He's had attrition to deal with at times, but entering today, he has 125 points, a solid cushion over Eric Bourdois. Then it is Riley Shentag, followed by Kevin Risson, along with Landry, rounding out the top five. The separation amongst the top drivers, 69 points amongst those competitors, Glenn. And some of them have had some ups and downs. Even the top driver of the standings had a couple rounds in a row with some rough starts from the get-go.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be critical to close it out.
That cushion helped him a lot, and Bourdain moved from third to second in the points.
And that's the critical thing, too, is trying to make sure things are locked up for sure, and in a comfortable position by the time you get to the finale, you'd have to think.
Exactly. He's just got such a great cushion, but behind him, I think there's a lot of wide open to go yet.
Especially when it comes to the space back to Riley Shentag, as mentioned, a fair bit back. That's more than 40 points, big three to be precise. Yeah, Kevin Risson about 64 points back. Antoine Landry, 69 back. And then you throw into the mix drivers like Moisan, another point or so back, fairly tight at the edge of the top five. And keep in mind, that also takes into account some of the top drivers in the Pro-Am side of things. The top-ranked overall driver in those sides has been Valancia in 16th. He, so far, though, has been shuffled a little bit back behind the overall Pro-Am leader in Levaik. Because in the Pro-Am side of things, Levaik 95 points scored. Valancia, when it comes to his Pro-Am competitors, 90. And that last round was critical for it.
It was critical, but it's going to go down to the wire with these two. And, you know, with Landry right there as well, this is, again, a wide open in the top three. But those two up front, they're going to have to keep an eye on their mirrors and look ahead and make sure they keep it on the track, because that's a tight points battle.
Tommy Landry also within the mix as well, 77 points scored, nearly 20 back. And you have DeWard, who started off so strong, tied with Jonathan Baudry with 64 points total. You also have someone who's really quietly moved himself into the top five conversation, 8 points back of that respective spot. Lefrene, who we mentioned had some good consistency in some of the races, he's now on the doorstep of top five Pro-Am.
Yeah, that's right. He moved up a position to 6th. The top 5 have pretty much stayed the way they were the last race exactly. Some points increases and some tightening of the points, but you're right. Lafrange has moved up a spot.
Closing up fairly decently. You also have Marchand in the conversation. Keep in mind as well, things are tight for those who are looking about it for top 10s, depending who started off so well early on. 34 points, 4 points back to the top 10 ranking. But let's talk a little bit about this circuit first of all. Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. 2.9 miles, 4.6 kilometers, and it's a circuit that's a rhythm track that's very difficult to pass at. A lot to consider when it comes to this facility. Let's take a look at a track guide to learn more on how to drive it. Let's take a look at some of the various points when it comes to Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and you can see some of the difficult parts of this circuit, Glenn, that these drivers will have rhythm-wise. Turns 1 and 2, one of the more trickier sections, but the flow, critical for turns 4 all the way to turn 8.
Yeah, exactly. As they come off 3, you want to come nice and wide and get a nice run into 4. About a first, second degree corner, or gear corner, I should say, rather. And again, kind of a long flowing corner around that racetrack, and then you get into some really tight stuff here, right down into like first, second gear.
See how much it has to be let to roll when it comes to that rotation in the corner before you head towards turn 7. Now keep in mind that run up through turn 9 is a very critical part. Campsa is the name of that respective corner, and that's the good lead-in for a lot of the potential runs for draft. It's a spot where drivers can go off track and have some dangerous moments, but it's also one where if you nail it in right, this run down in towards the next chicanes can be critical for passes today.
Yeah, 5th gear all the way down to first gear through this, and it's an off-camber corner, drops off, and then as you get in through turn 11 and 12 here, gets a little tricky as well. You got to be oh so careful getting on the throttle at the right point at the exit of 12.
That goes all the way to the chicane, RACC, all the way to New Holland in particular. This part of the track, very difficult and tight. One of the areas where a couple of drivers may get some off tracks along the sausage curbing. But if you nail it out right here, some drivers have showcased in the past in various sims the ability to send it deep into the opening corner. And that's how you get around Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Let's jump into the live session now, as things are progressing when it comes to qualifying. What has been a busy night for some. This is the look now at the Pro-Am side of things. 23 minutes and 38 seconds total left in qualifying as a grouping. Right now, it is Valancia at the top of the board, a 1:43.897, followed by Valet along with Landry, separated by about half a second back to Clermont.
It looked like Calais, they're just off track.
And a few drivers, in fact, also stopping along the edges of the racetrack as well. Like we're going to see a few drivers go off and on. And keep in mind, this is nighttime conditions for qualifying. 1:07 a.m. in sim, and the coldest track conditions we've seen all season, about 14 degrees Celsius today.
Very cool race conditions, qualifying conditions for these higher level drivers as well. And again, add the element of the nighttime to this qualifying lap. That's going to be challenging.
Keep in mind, as you follow along with some of the onboards, some drivers trying to sort themselves out, get into the rhythm, and make sure their tires are at the depth. We've discussed this a lot throughout the season. We're making sure the tires are in the optimal window or critical to success. Keep in mind, driver you're following along with, Jonathan Baudry, currently has about a 0.7 of a second delta slower difference compared to his personal best in qualifying so far. We'll see if he's able to build it up here.
Well, and keep in mind too, right, Justin, that as we mentioned in the opening, it's a narrow racetrack as well, so qualifying being as critical as it can be for positioning. Get yourself as far up on the grid as possible for the start of this race. It's a long racetrack, but it's a tight racetrack, and you've got to have that track position to get going.
Looking around at the various angles, this is the number 66 you've seen zipping on by towards the bottom of the board, 12th position. This is Grenier. Looking to keep himself forward in the McLaren at the moment. Needs to find a way to catch up about nearly 2 seconds, though. About 1.2 seconds or so is the gap. He's right now dead even on his personal best lap in terms of the delta.
Coming off a 14th place finish. I think it was at WeatherTech Laguna Seca, a little further down on the points. And again, getting down to these last couple races, everybody wants to score maximum points.
Keep in mind, when it comes to tonight, we're able to also keep a track of the best sectors and split into 3 various sectors amongst those keeping track. Sector 1, the best driver seems to be Marshawn Curley at 29.294 sector-wise. Claremont's been the best in Sector 2, but it's Melanson, who is a 10th of a second quicker in the final sector, that's really solidified his top spot on the board so far. The preferences seem to be faring out section to section so far in the session for the Pro-Am cars.
It's very interesting to take it and break it down through the sections. Obviously, racing is all about time, whether, overall time comes down to the sectors. And it's funny how you can see this driver do better in sector 1, that driver do better in sector 3 perhaps, but then you got to combine it all together and then it averages out to your best times, obviously. But it's really interesting to see how some of the drivers take to some certain sections of the racetrack, whether it be the technical or the high speed. It's really interesting to watch through the sectors.
Tommy Landry, a good example of that right now, where in that one little bobble coming out of that chicane, that cost him all the time he was picking up that lap, Glenn, to where he was about a half a tenth up. He has lost 2 tenths with that complex of corners alone, to the point where you already see him lifting a little bit. He's realized he didn't get the best of times there.
And you know what's going on inside the driver's head, and what they're saying might not be able to be repeated over the air when they do that mistake.
Here's a look at the driver leading in Sector 2 in particular, 39.8 on average for Claremont on his best time, should say. Already a 10th up, looking to try and jump up a few spots. If he keeps that 10th or so, that would jump him into the top 5 in the session. So far, it's been an intriguing campaign when it comes to him when you consider things, because look towards the Pro-Am side of things, he hasn't scored a point this year in 2 race starts.
No, that's right. Also take a look at where we have our top contenders in the championship right now. One sitting the top of the board, and the other's a little further back. So interesting to see if Levesque can get that car up a few more positions for the starting grid.
Early starting off the current lap, in fact, coming out of the pit lane, should say. For reference, Claremont keeping an eye still on him towards the final part of his respective lap. Pick up half a second. Just lost all the time, though. He had picked up the whole entire lap through that last corner. That was 2 tenths up nearly. That's now gone to about a 10th or so lost compared to what he was able to do. And that just shows the emphasis of, if you lose any bit of rhythm here at Barcelona, you're not picking up a faster time.
Yep, you just got to keep it all, buttoned together from corner to corner, lap after lap.
Here's Benier, meanwhile, currently looking for the top 10. He's trying to also keep the forward progression going. Major sparking points I've noticed is the struggle, it seems, for some of the slower corners. How would you prepare your car for a racetrack such as this here tonight at Barcelona, Catalonia, knowing the ebbs and flows of the circuit, but also the minimum elevation changes?
Right, and I was just going to bring that up. It's typically a medium downforce track, a medium suspension track, and I was just thinking about that in this qualifying session. If anybody is playing with that setup, that downforce and that suspension setup here in the colder nighttime conditions, but typically it's a medium kind of downforce, medium suspension track.
Here's a look at the driver still at the top of the board, Lonson. 143.897, a best lap for him so far. Hasn't been able to top it since, in 5 total attempts completed. Test racing machine, really amongst those who's in that intense fight, because he's had great positioning. He's actually got a better spot in the overall standings than his championship rival in the Pro-Am standings. But the difference has been in terms of the classification, in terms of the respective class. That's where the struggle has been with some of the attrition as of late.
That's right. You're watching Pezet here in the BMW on board, getting a good opportunity to see just how dark it is out there. They're trying to make it weird in those first couple of corners. And again, that's a 6th gear down to about a 2nd gear through turns 1 and 2.
Remember, Pezet showed some good speed throughout the campaign. 6 starts, 8th in the point standings entering today. Currently amongst the top 3. He's been good in qualifying. That's the critical thing in the BMW. He's the second highest ranked BMW in season points for the class.
Started off the season, like we said, with a bang, and things just haven't come his way of late, so obviously hoping to get around here with a couple to go.
Actually kicking up a little bit of sparks, in fact, with how close that car is getting along the end of the curves, and throughout this respective lap, like so many others, this run through the final corners of the racetrack in particular have been the Achilles heels for some, where a lot of the time they pick up goes right away, right about here. Tries to roll it in to gain a few tenths. That time instead loses a full tenth in one apex alone.
And just
in the tough balance.
You just saw he was just slightly up to the sausage curves. Whether or not he got onto them, I'm not sure there, but it was awfully close, and they really do upset the car at this track.
Absolutely, you see him just about clipping the sausage curve right there. 6 tenths down this lap, approaching 7 tenths down with some of the struggles now. Right now it's still 2 tenths off the pole. Will stay 2 tenths off the pole. As you see at the bottom of the ticker, some of the attrition buildup in mistakes. Marshawn, keep in mind, has also been someone who's made a few mistakes of his own. I remember in particular that opening race of the season. Was in the driver's seat to win the class, then was involved in that crash coming up the hillside and up the mountain. And he hasn't, for the most part, been able to bounce back since. He's had good runs, yes, but he hasn't been in winning position really too much since.
No, you're right. Not since about race 3 of the season. I think he's had a good top 5 run. He's been trying to get there, like you said. But again, another driver that's having those difficulties this last couple of races.
Coming to the end of Pro-Am qualifying, just reached halfway through the overall session. 15 minutes for the pro drivers to hit the circuit. Drivers now rolling out from the pit lane now. Anyone on the Pro-Am laps currently must complete those laps here and now. But here's a look at the driver a lot of the attention is towards tonight. Antoine Baban, once again, a dominant season for the multiple-time champion. He was regarded as an alien because of his speed. Presenting event sim racing, looking to add another trophy to their cabinet.
He's just, like I said, on another stratosphere. It's just up to watch him drive. Just seems to not put a wheel wrong. Calm, cool, and collected. Everything you need to be about 154 points, 125 points, to call that just about what? Huge. Lead over second place. It's a pleasure to watch him drive these tracks.
It's sizable, yes, but you never know how things can go throughout the championship. Here's a look at a Ryan E-Racing competitor, David Valancia, who's also getting up to speed in the Bentley. And keep in mind, when it comes to the team side of things, Team Orion has showcased some good speed themselves. 83 points combined in terms of the team side. However, because of a certain number 99 car, Van Sim Racing leads the team standings. Of those, 12 come from the teammate of the 99. Yeah,
is again, just what can you say, right? Those points are critical as well to keep an eye on. So it's great when you've got a matching that works as well as this one is.
For reference, Guillaume Boyer is that respective driver referred to with the 12 points. Best racing in the conversation with Malonson and Lawrence Dubé. Conversation. Give credit to Boulanger. He's been showing some decent points, scoring himself 27 points scored on the season. So we take a look at David Susi, amongst those who had some very busy battles, to say the very least, out in California recently.
Yeah, that's right. And then also something to talk about too, we have for this qualifying is the drivers that have the extra weight added for a balance of performance, added weights from the last round, first, second, and third. So the 99 is the driver carrying that 30 extra kilograms. This time around, Eric Boudois got the 20, and Ryan Shintag, he has the extra 10 kilograms after WeatherTech Laguna Seca.
Those are very important to consider because for some of the drivers, they've been able to overcome those weight differences. Others, depending on the circuit, it ends up being a bad combination, so to speak, in terms of having that weight mismatch, so to speak, as we take a look at Moisan.
One of the things I like about the races these days, the last few years, is that leaderboard positioning actually on the cars itself. So when you're around a racetrack and you can follow the cars and the leaders and see who's where a lot better than you could back in the old days, and not really knowing who's what and where. But I love the fact that this technology on racing these days has brought the leaderboard right to the race cars.
Especially when it comes to how dark conditions are currently, nighttime, as mentioned.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So the rhythm continues on for the competitors at the moment. Pro drivers now starting to put in their first times. But Ben just set his fastest time so far at the 1:43.752 mark. Kevin Racine about a 1:43.777. Then you have Marc-Antoine Landry also setting a time. Bordelon and Mador amongst the top qualifiers now on the board. Top 5 all-pro class drivers. Already, the time's being set, and several who have already started off the session are as much as 3/10 up this lap.
And still some time left. We just got a little over 10 minutes to go in this qualifying session, so there's still time to move around the board here and get up on that starting grid.
Marc-Antoine Landry taking a look at it, and I've been impressed with that speed from one of the EGT Motorsport machines, especially with him being able to keep himself out of some trouble as of late, and that's been a trouble spot for a few competitors. Last season, for reference, top 3 in the point standings, just beat Bordelon for that by 1 point. This season, he's been able to keep up those set performances to try and get himself into the conversation for the championship fight still. For reference, so far for him, he's amongst the top 5 in the points, with a chance to move up as high as 4th with a finish well today.
And sitting 3rd overall right now, Lamborghini. And look at the top 4 or 5. And it's good to see the manufacturer mix in there. We don't see a second car until we get to the 5th place with Mador, the Lexus leading the line. But as we have another change, Shentag to the top of the order.
Probably Shentag with 2 purple sectors at that time, but Landry amongst those also jumping in front of Boivin. Expect those times to change though. Racine just crossed the line right now to take the top spot. Dubé's approaching the finish line right now. Ben currently is approaching the start of his timing laps in particular, and also is looking to kick things up pace-wise. So in our words, a lot of quick pace, let's put it that way. Half a second difference amongst the top 5, with Eric Bordeaux, who needs a good qualifying performance, needing to pick up more time than the 2:10 projected at the moment.
And Racine coming off just missing the podium last round, but at first the race before obviously wants to get back on the podium, and so far looked pretty good at the top of the order.
Yeah, Bordeaux has shown a lot of good pace and rhythm when it comes to WeatherTech race. We'll go to second. Has spent a fair bit of time, noticed, really on his own with how the rhythm of the race was, because remember last round, a lot of battling, let's put it that way, and track position turned out to be a premium if you were able to pick up, as Bordeaux elects to pull off to the side and looks to reset his positioning here despite being up on the board. Make more adjustments. This race is going to be much harder to do that because, well, it's a track with the history of being hard to pass at, as we refer to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait for the start of this race. I'm just looking forward to that dive into the first couple of corners in the opening lap. I'm excited for the race. It's down to the wire. Hearts are pumping.
Raleigh Shentag pumps up an error fast time, 1:43.217. Also looking to top that, though, across the stripe as well. Mador looking to bump his times up. Across the stripe this time, Racine a few tenths up. Not able to put himself faster, though. Then you compare that to Mador, you see on track, already shuffled to 8th. Not able to pick up his time quite yet, needs 6 tenths to reach the pull time. As Moisan looks to try and move himself forward, still about halfway through his lap, 2 tenths up, currently in the BMW.
Yeah, BMW sitting there in that 5th spot, trying to get a little bit more. See what he can do.
Yeah, and Moisan in particular, remember, was amongst those with that contingency of blue and greenish cars who really got bounced around for the battle for 5th last time.
That was a pinball effect, if I recall.
Yeah. It was like bumper cars when it came to the racetrack there. And you have to give credit to the Team GTCQ machines. They fought as hard as they could to hold on to those spots and to the very bitter end, including even when the doors were starting to be bumped and fed to them.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was great racing to watch, but in the end, yeah, like I said, a lot of bouncing around, a lot of competitive racing going on, and just kind of wonder what the conversation was after the fact.
Yeah, to say it interesting, some of those discussions can be an understatement. As coming around there, Moisson pulled off to the side, able to bump up his time. The door also to close out the final portions of his respective lap. Tough thing is for Mador, trying to find himself an extra 0.6. He's already found half that time, though, this lap. Already up 0.36 seconds. Mador to the top 3, one of his best qualifying runs of the season to date so far, with 6 minutes to go.
Great run indeed. I was just looking to see where Pavem was on the racetrack. Looks like he's just coming around through corner 4, coming up to corner 4 now, and he's sitting there a little further down. Thought he might be a little bit higher up in the top of the grid right now, but he's not.
Someone who I think everyone would expect a little bit higher too. The 26th place car on the board you just seen, St. Ors. It's been a shockingly rough season as of late when it comes to him. A lot of rough momentum, so to speak, or should I say, lack of, compared to the drivers of, say, Portugal or Shentag towards the top of the standings.
Yeah, he's managed to be pretty consistent though, and have that second place points coming into this race, and let's hope for a good race for him, because I think he's the highlight of the chance, so to speak, to dethrone the top spot. He's the only one really closest enough to it right now.
Portugal, meanwhile, you see on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, 11th on the board. Right now picks up a few more tenths. Portugal, just like that. Well, 2 tenths picked up. It's enough to bump him top 5 into the point, rather in qualifying. He had the fastest Sector 3, though, that lap at 34.2 to help him get there. Robbie Shentag, though, he's been near untouchable this session. It's been razor thin, though. This is one of the tightest qualifying margins of the season. 0.048 seconds currently, with Kevin Racine looks like making possible last adjustments.
This is great to see this NFC Pavem moving up to 3rd now, as we're now seeing where he probably should be, as we expect him to be, let's put it that way. But I'll tell you what, this is another driving another car I like to watch, and he had his share of fun round 6 with Laguna Seca. Good to see him at the top of the orders as well, and another good driver.
Now remember when it came to that race too, remember he was involved in some of the contact early.
Yeah, exactly.
That put him on the alternate strategy from get-go after rough runs with the corkscrew. He actually picked up a 5-second time penalty that race in the end, 12th officially by the time things were reviewed. That put him a lap down in the end. Remember, it was pretty tight, those margins, to stay on the lead lap. Some of the other time penalties of note, Dubé, remember, had that major contact that race. He finished 8th officially. Cloutier, 5-second time penalty, 7th. Bordeaux, 5-second time penalty, dropped back to 10th, for reference sake. So a few of the top contenders who were amongst the bumping and banging, including with Shentag, did get penalties that affected them in terms of their point score.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting when you talk about penalties? Well, the driver in 2nd place in the points, Bordeaux, no penalties so far for the 432.
Yeah. He's been able to keep it very clean in his battles, and a lot of good respect shown from him in particular. Tough thing has been some of these races qualifying, and Bordeaux now shuffle back to 8th. Moisson, amongst those who really got into some of the battles, and especially drivers like Dubé, go up from 9th. He is 3 tenths up this lap. That would be good enough if he's able to get through this chicane well to get around the top 4. Is he able to keep the time? Just about does. Looks to keep the momentum, about 2.5 tenths up. This time around, 5th best on the board.
He'll be happy with that.
On. Yeah, I think so too. I don't think Bordeaux, though, is going to be happy with 9th. Tenths the difference for him, and he's also picked up 2 tenths this lap so far, Glenn.
Yeah, and just under 2 minutes, so this is going to be it for him. You got to figure this could be the last lap if he's got another chance to put a lap in. I think he might. It looks like it's just coming through the last couple corners now.
Lap times right now the 143s as talked about. So for many of the drivers, to get a lap in or have been on the circuit in the past few seconds or so to make sure they had enough time able to take the checker and complete their current lap. Antoine has a little bit of draft to now pick up on. Will this help a little bit? It's 2 tenths up once more currently, or one should say, and that gets him up to 4th on the board. Here's a look at the points leader, the 99 Boven. Also up by about a tenth or so, hit a little bit of the curbing though. That cost him about half a tenth. Right now, he's about 2 tenths off the pole. He'll get about half the margin, just about. Lost a little bit towards the stripe, a 143.3. That's not enough to pick up a spot.
We'll see what we can do. He'll have at least this one more lap to get in, though, right? He should be able to get back around to the checkers.
This would be his last chance if he elects to take it. Moisan looks to try and see if he can pick up the full tenth or so, and does. That's top 4. Once again, the qualified speed utilized in the BMW. Let's take a look at Bordeaux, who is now back to 7th. He just got shuffled as a result of the last time put in. He's also 2 tenths up. The track really picking up pace, it seems, with the rubber build-up now, with about 16 seconds up on the clock.
Yeah, that would have to be about it. I mean, the track temp's about the same, so you got to figure it's probably just getting a little bit rubbered in, and it's so close in time. So, like you just said, he just dropped down to 7th. They're that close.
Want to be careful on the throttle, using some of the maps as well as various settings for the traction control. About 211 throttle, 411 for the traction. Checker flag waves for the session. Or will he try and close out the lap? He's lost a bit of time, though. He's dead even on his personal best now instead. A few drivers shuffling up in front of him. Sin got bounced down by Bordeaux just now for 2nd. Bordeaux just shuffled back to 8th. It will not be an improvement. He lost a 10th in the final sector at least. Make it nearly 3 or 4. Here is Boven. He was also looking about even in terms of the mark. See what the official time says at the checker, though. Tied at the moment for his 4th position. Not able to bump himself ahead. Landry, though, might have a chance here.
Just got a couple more corners to go. The down right to the first gear, last couple of corners in the chicane, and see what he can pull off here through 16.
Got a 10th up. That would get him around the top 3. Lost a lot of time, though, out of the final corner. Does get out of the tie, though. 13 100s quicker than the championship leader. Right now, Landry 4th on the board. Last the drivers on the racetrack is Medor. Everyone else is either in the pit lane or has taken the checker for the session. Comes to Medor, though, this will not be an improvement either. So qualifying has come to a close, and it is one Riley Shentag who picked up the quick time, Glenn, about a half a tenth quicker than the nearest car.
That's a big margin, and that's going to be interesting to see if he can get the run into the first couple of corners. It'll be clear sailing while everybody tries to fight behind him.
Especially with that time for drivers to dive themselves into the opening corners for this race today, going to be also prevalent. Official time of difference for the pole, by the way, 0.045 seconds. And it's one of the closest overall time-wise to factor in, because the top 10 separated by just 0.3 seconds. Some of the pole battles have separated as much as about half a second to a full second amongst those same spots this year.
And you have to go all the way down to, I think it was 16th to find a second behind the pole winning time. So it's a tight group of cars.
Get the chance to look at those in just a moment as the last of the drivers circulate their way to the pit lane themselves, including those who have already taken the checker flag. But again, as mentioned, Riley Shentag was the quickest qualifier overall. Some drivers had taken as many as 9 laps to be aboard their best circuits around the track. A couple put in just 2. 1 or 2 attempted as little as 4. Sin in particular was that driver who set 4, who was highest amongst those up. But as the drivers continue to make their adjustments, again, Riley Shentag set the fastest time of the session just moments ago with a 1:43.170. What has been an intense night so far, to say the very least, Glenn. And based on what you've seen here, expectations now for the race, knowing the tempo going to be set now with that starting lineup.
Tempo, I think, is going to be fast. It's going to be furious, and it's going to be daylight. So that's going to put a whole new mix into things as well. We'll see what we have for, conditions today as far as track temperature is concerned. But yeah, I mean, that's intense. That top 16 being within a second of each other, and like you said, the top 10 alone within 3/10. That's huge.
So once again, it was Riley Shentag who set the fastest time in the qualifying session just moments ago. That was 0.045 seconds quicker than Bourdouin. The rest of the drivers making their way towards the standing start have 5 minutes to prepare themselves today. Then Kevin Racine qualified third today. That was 0.095 seconds back. Then it's Marc-Antoine Landry and Jonathan Boivin amongst the top 5. Then it's Dubé, Moissan, Bourdouin, Mador, the top 9. Valancia rounds out the top 10 qualifiers for today's race. The highest running driver, is worth noting, for the Pro-Am side will be starting next to Auri. That is Melanson. 7/10 off that pole mark. A massive cushion, though, is built up between the Pro and the Pro-Am drivers for, in some cases. Kat Junis amongst those starting towards the front in 13th. Baudry, decent positioning in 14th spot. Then you have Pezet, his best qualified run, 15th. Bilodeau will start 16th. Tommy Landry, 17th. David Soucy has struggled towards the end of the session in 18th. Ballet, along with Thibodeau, the top 20. David Claremont starts 21st today, with Gabriel Lafrene in 22nd. Then it is Marchand and Jeff Collins, the top 24. Steve St. Ars had some struggles throughout the session. He was the lowest qualifying pro driver, fortunate for the Mercedes AMG powered machine. He'll start alongside Bruno Levi. Then it's Patrick Trepanier, along with Michael Grenier. Then it's Vincent Gabriel de Guise. And the last of the drivers today, Patrick Barrett and Naresh Dabinin, a surprise for the 44, with the speedy showcase throughout the campaign. Your keys to victory, first of all, for what's expected to be an important race, obviously, for the championship, but one that will really test some of the drivers' limits and patience to find the right moves to move ahead.
Testing patience indeed, Justin, as we have alluded to a couple of times already with this narrow racetrack, down to the fact that we only have one more round to go after this. So again, patience is going to be a virtue, because you toss it away here and you toss away your championship hopes as well. So it's going to be very key to be calm, cool, and collected on a narrow racetrack, a long racetrack. You've got about maybe half a dozen really good passing opportunities at this racetrack. Believe it or not, one of them is being turn 1 after that high-speed 6th gear down into corner 1. Turn 4, turn 5, turn 7, and turn 10 really are your really good key passing points here.
Those passing zones going to be all very important in about 2 minutes' time. We start the parade lap and get a rolling start. A reference for those amongst the top 3 to think about penalty-wise, weight-wise. And as talked about top 5 for the starting positions today, you have Bourdouin for reference, who finished second last time out, starting in 8th. Moissan also finished top 3 in the end. He's 7th in the starting order. And you see the atmosphere for the racetrack. Keep in mind, this is a circuit with a lot of experience for those in the rear world in particular, because it's considered by many one of the most active tracks in all of the world, and especially in Europe, because it hosts testing for Formula 1 Grand Prix, I should say, MotoGP races, comes the winter home in turn for a lot of the teams, also hosts Grand Prix racing in general. This track is in constant use, to say the very least, and it has become a pivotal part for a lot of teams' preparations in the real world.
It is, and in fact, for how young it is as a racetrack, it's not that old. I think around 1991 is when it opened, so it's a relatively young racetrack in some considerations.
Yes. And it opened in 91, had a bit of changes, and keep in mind, that's when they initially held the Spanish Grand Prix. It also just so happened to coincide, remember, with the Olympic Games at Barcelona, where it ended up being the start and finish line for one of the events, the Road Team Time Trial Cycling event, specifically at that time. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to that history of things. This is also a racetrack that's considered the second most sustainable racetrack in the world. Together, circuit based in France, Circuit Paul Ricard, and right behind the Italian circuit at Mugello. Drivers just about done their final setup checks. Your favorites to win this one today, class-wise?
Class-wise, well, how can you go wrong gambling on the 99, I'd have to say. But I don't know. You know what? I think our pole sitter's going to have something today. So I'm going for Shentag. I'm going to go for Shentag today. And I also think that I'm going to go switch things up down on the Pro-Am. And you may think I'm crazy, but I'm going Tom Landry.
See everyone getting their tires warmed up, in particular. You see Cat Junis going a bit back and forth. And everyone's playing the patience game, noticed? Trying to ride a cool and comfortable 60 to 70 kilometers per hour to make sure every little bit of heat is in the tires before they get to the launch.
Track conditions, you noticed earlier, a little bit on the warm side. I think it was about 28 degrees Celsius, ambient temperature around 23, so a little bit sticky out there.
Much different compared to qualifying. And it can be compared when you consider things to the run at Bathurst, how that qualifying worked. Nighttime for the start of that session before going to daytime for the racing conditions. There are all those track conditions referred to 23 Celsius air temp, 28 now the track temperature, optimum conditions. Expect to be nice and sunny with minimal cloud cover throughout this entire round.
And that makes for a good, consistent race as well for the drivers and the handling and the cars, the setups, the tires. It makes for a good all-around race, so it's good conditions.
All of the drivers continuing to practice the gears, get themselves ready. Get the last of their adjustments in as well, because keep in mind, this is also a time where you can check the brake bias, and the interesting thing is, there are plenty of drivers who are using a massive wide range of brake biases worth considering. Some of the 50s, some as high as the high 60s.
And when we talk about the long 6-gear straightaway into the 2nd-gear corners, you know, you've got to have your braking down pat, you know, warm up those brakes right now because you've got that big run into corner 1 and 2 and a whole pile of cars around you.
A few more corners before we take the green flag here. Remember the strategy. Set up for the series, you must take a pit stop. Most drivers, remember, have elected to wait till the final few laps usually.
That's what
especially towards the front.
Yeah, we've seen that pretty much at every round so far, with the odd exception.
And there was a little bit of contact nearly for the race leaders, and they're nearly passing each other all of a sudden as they try and double them up. A little bit of bumping and banging coming to the final corners before the green.
Yeah, a little brake checking going on.
See how tight this section is to even try and go double file. For those at the back, it's going to be very difficult, to say the least. Line themselves up unless they get to the final corner right here. Themselves running through New Holland.
Reach down and tighten those belts, ready to go.
It's Riley Shentag. It's Adrian Bourdouin in control of the field. Two teammates in control of the pack in the McLarens. Green flags are waving. We're underway from Barcelona.
Nobody's stepping out of line just yet, except for further down, having a peek to the inside. We might go 3 wide, about 4-6 rows back.
That's Cat Junis taking a little bit of a peek. In the middle there, Lafrene not able to make too much forward progress. Shentag gets clear near contact for the battle for second. A good start, though, for Baven. Oh, running up to 4th, looking for 3rd on the outside, forced to back it off. Going wide big time is Bourdouin, though. He drops out of the top 3.
Yeah, Bourdouin was way wide. He didn't do track limits there.
See that heart of the pack starting to form up. That's Antoine Landry trying to run the outside as well. Repsol up to seat. Very tight circuit where you need to get single file as Moisan makes contact. And a couple more in the sand in the backdrop as the lights start to flicker. 3 wide in the heart of the pack. right in the heart of Sector 2. Bourdois has already been shuffled to 15th, make it 16th, right from the jump up. Poor start for one of the championship contenders in the pro class.
He's got some struggling to do. Everybody trying to jockey for position on this opening lap. Get it while you can, because it's going to settle down into single file and the pace is going to pick up. Oh, contact!
That's Moisson making contact. That's with Antoine Landry. Landry back going, has dropped outside the top 10. And Moisson, who is in the top 7, with the first bit of major contact of the race. Things try and settle down. Things are kind of not settling down at the same time, though.
This is just the first lap, Justin. Come on, guys. You can't win it on the first lap.
Some people can.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. There's no time to rest on this racetrack. It's going to be intense right through the whole get-go, right to the checkered flag.
The Bourdois, one of the biggest droppers so far for the get-go, back to 16th. Complete the first lap around the circuit. 2 minutes off the clock so far. Of note, some of the packs starting to form up. Shentag trying to build up a bit of a buffer, but it's Racine, who is in second, about 1.2 seconds back. You also have Marchand, who's amongst those who are trying to fight. You also have Debidin, remember, started at the back of the field. He's already made several passes because Soucy, St. Ors, Collins all have had to pit. Others like Barrett and Claremont, of note, have also lost several spots.
Yeah, some early race mayhem going on now. There's still going to be a lot of strategy to go, and again, we talked about pit stops. Will they wait to the end? It's been the case so far. I mean, obviously, we're only talking about it on the first, second lap, but it's going to be one of those things to keep an eye on.
Here's Antoine Landry battle going on for about 10th position. Kachunas up ahead. Lowry also picking a couple spots. Gonna run away from things. See how much runoff space some of these drivers willing to take here towards the edge of that green rough section, but also trying to make sure they don't clip the grass or hit some of the sand that can send them sideways.
Yeah, there's spots on this racetrack where you can definitely have that liberty, going a little wide, get into the green. Watch out though, you've got some, opportunities to make a mistake in some of those rumble strips as well, I should say, in some of those sausage strips in some of those corners. You've got to be very careful. You see a long sausage strip right there, but it doesn't seem to be too bad in this section of the racetrack, but a lot of careful driving through the green parts of the racetrack there. A lot of debris, a lot of marbles off the side of the racetrack.
Keep in mind, this train is a little bit backed up, not just because of some of the sends like this one towards the inside. That one's complete for 10th.
Nice.
There was also a bit of contact the previous sector at the head of the pack with Valancia and Bourdois fighting a little bit. That really cost them plenty of time, about 2 seconds. And now, as a result, what was originally a 3-car battle at the start of the lap stretches as far back to as about 11th currently, within about a second of each other.
So I'll tell you what, let's throw the checkered flag right now, because I've got Shentag leading in Pro and Landry leading in Pro-Am. I'm good right there. Throw the checkered, just as I called it.
I know I was kind of joking about winning on the first lap, but no, that's not what I meant. But Moisson a little bit wide toward the edge of the sand.
But they're starting to settle in. They've got that pace, they've got that rhythm. You don't see a whole lot of dives or moves for position. A couple of nice passes, yes indeed, but nobody's taking any silly moves right now. They've got a long way to go and they know it.
Just look for the back end of this battle. This is Boulanger, who you're seeing this from. Gonna run away from Moisson. And Boulanger, I've noticed, is trying to get a little bit out of the trap, but is also struggling to get towards the middle of the apexes at times in this train now.
That last couple of corners are real tricky getting down through that chicane. It's a real delicate part of the racetrack, all the way from 12 all the way through to 15. It's a real delicate part of the racetrack.
Now, we've seen it and talked about it a lot in qualifying alone. That's where a majority of the drivers who had 2, 3 10s picked up immediately lost them, as Moisson nearly loses a spot. Mador thought about the send. Instead, it's bottled up. Mador peeks to the inside, really to the rear end. Instead, he's forced to back off. Alarie looking to take advantage, heading towards Repsol. Forced to back off as well.
Moisson was up over the rumble strips there, and it got him a little out of shape, and that certainly gave Mador that chance.
Driver trying to set himself back up as a result. And remember, he's been not afraid to be a little aggressive. Lowry, meanwhile, was amongst those who has been trying to show a little bit of patience, I've noticed, the past couple races we've seen him. Especially knowing how things fared the last time with some of these cars in this pack.
Yeah, I think, you know what, he's got his head thinking about year-end points now.
Oh, contact! Lowry just got hit in the backdrop. Mador through the rear end. We'll see 4 wide breakout. Mador and Owl will run away as Lowry got sent off the track outside the top 10. He's now side by side with Malone Saunders, top 10.
Yeah, casualty of that one. Somebody getting out of shape, and you end up being the one who pays the price.
Hard bit of contact from Malone Saunders. In the Pro-Am class, mind you, looks to try and take advantage of it. That is not the class lead currently, though, because Tommy Landry is up in front. Just like that, everybody cuts the course. And it looks like Pezze's going to have to come in. Pezze is elected to take the stop now. But what's happened the past couple laps in that train?
And that's it. It might be the time to get out of here and give yourself some space, see how it cycles through at the end.
Meanwhile, taking a look at the battle still with Moisan. Door again looking pretty quick in Sector 1. The struggle has been, it seems, again, with this flow of the circuit, getting the full attempt realistically and cleanly done, especially with how busy this grouping has been.
It's been a good battle to watch. I mean, it was fairly calm again right now, but Moisan had that opportunity, couldn't make it work, but still, nonetheless, a good battle to watch.
Building up a little bit of a buffer. Meanwhile, Bordelon and Boulanger now grouping together just at the very edge of the draft of Dubé. Currently the separation amongst them, about 3 or so seconds towards 4th. Here's Marc-Antoine Landry for reference in 12th. Some of the fellow matching color cars and matching sponsor cars looking to fight now.
Looks to the inside. Obviously not going to pull off anything there. No room to do it there. But yeah, looking in your rear view mirrors, you see yourself. Same paints, pretty much.
The battle with the Landrys. Tommy Landry's in front. Marc-Antoine Landry behind.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool.
No move yet. Here's the look at Boulanger. Is the move on for him? Not yet. Thought about it though in the Bentley. And this is the big thing, too. We talk a lot about the strategy. This is a chance for drivers to save, potentially. If they can't get the pass done right, try and save. If you can't get the pass done like Mador just now, try and run away and then save a little bit before you make the next pass attempt.
Yeah, Mador, nice move there. You know, that entry into one is so wide, you've got to be sure that you've got the space to do it. I think Mador took advantage of that wide entry by Moisan and took the inside line. That's one of the spots we said you could pass, turn 1.
And you have to be pretty daring when it comes to that, too, because in some types of cars at this racetrack, that is some borderline towards that passing opportunity.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're just, if you can make it stick, you're set up nicely through 2 into 3.
Absolutely. Jay setting its pace currently. Right now, averaging around the 144s, the best laps. Your dad even on the stopwatch currently as well as he waits patiently. Here's a look, though, at one of the other examples of patience. Mentioned the 99. This grouping is starting to lose some time, and John Van has said, we've got to go. Tries to send it again. Towards the final corner, looking to try and use the inside. Leans on the car. And Kevin Racine does not want to give this up. Racine does not want to give it.
It's a drag race now, though. Bourvin's going to have the inside line if he can hold it there.
He has the preferred line. Bourvin does. Tries to get towards the edge of the curb. Contact again. And a wiggle, and Jonathan Bourvin tries to pull away. He jumps up to second on track, but the damage has been done. They're now about 2.3 plus seconds back.
Yeah, we talk about how Boivin checks out Shentag. He's doing it. But this is now Boivin's got the clear racetrack, so let's see what he can do as far as closing that gap. See what the interval becomes.
The driver's pressing the go buttons, to say the least. Valancia starting to look a little bit more pouncy. Deeper in the braking zone that time. But here's the critical thing. They have reeled in a car in terms of traffic, it appears, up the track, who is now moving to the left side, so a little bit of a drafting front for a second there. That's a 227 letting them go. That is Clermont.
Yeah, good move for Clermont to just let that battle go.
For those who have pit so far, we got Bordeaux, who's now taking some service for his mandatory stop, it appears, based on the pylon groupings. You have David Susi also wants those in those respective stops so far. They're around the 20s currently, though. Panier has also been in the service a period of time throughout this past lap and a half.
Surprising.
And this is
just surprising to say how much has happened, and we still look at the time we still have left to go. We still have over 45 minutes to go.
It's a chess match, right? When it comes to endurance racing, even when it comes to an hour, you have to think of the next move. Think about it and plan it ahead, several moves ahead.
You look at that entry. Look at how wide they get into that green off the rumble strips to straighten up that entry to one.
Bordeaux looking pretty clear, clean and clear when it comes to his marks so far. One of the better runs we've seen in the past couple of weeks. Bordeaux has always been some of the conversation. Last time out, once that time pony finished in 10th position. Here's a look at one of the drivers we gave a shout out to earlier. He's ready to pounce. This is the other Orion car, looking to make a move on the outside. Okay, with Valet, though preferred line, holds on with a little bit of snap of oversteer for a second. Lafrene had to save it.
Good to go on board. You can just see how much they have to crank that wheel down through there.
Talk a little bit of a curve. It looks like Valet is really struggling, though, when it comes to the sections at the moment. That may put him vulnerable again for the move. The problem is, Lafrene is also going really wide and taking a lot of curves the past lap or so. He clipped the sand there.
Yeah, twice now he's clipped the sand. We're really maximizing the track. Or should we say the limits?
Yeah, going over the limit a little bit. Hasn't gone over the extreme limits yet. Renier is also in the group. And you have to think too, especially depending on the passes go, you might have to come in and pit right now, for example, to get better positioning later on. That's what both of them have chosen. And I believe one of them just hit each other in the pit lane. Grenier has stopped in the pit entry after running to the back end for Lafrene, the other Orion car. The pit lane is blocked at the moment by one of the Pro-Am cars after contact in the pit entry. Here's the look at the battle for fifth. This may change some of the strategy if something can't get sorted by the time some of these cars get around.
Yeah, they want to make a pit stop. They cannot. This is an interesting dilemma.
There it is right there. Grenier is stuck in the middle of the entry. He has finally gotten the car off and away and out of the way. Here there was something with the throttle having about 5-10% input in before he was able to get the car away after rear-ending the back end of Lafrene on the entry. By the way, Lafrene, after the contact, has a penalty as a result of it. A lot happening as Bordeaux uses every bit of paint as he can.
I don't know what's more exciting, the action playing or the action on the track.
Yes. Well, both, because keep in mind, those who are considering some of the aggressive battling, they're positioning themselves for the long game after about 15-16 minutes on the clock so far. That's going to be important to think about. This race progresses here tonight.
Put on has a look comfortably into corner one. You know, it looks like, to me, it looks like Valancia gets a little bit of a run on him at the top speed, but then just cannot keep it there. The gap opens up a little bit more as they get through the tight stuff.
Valancia in particular noticed a little bit more tighter. And you have to consider, as the main thing too is, for both of their cars, they've struggled in this section. Another bobble and weave just noticed for the Bentley. That's allowed Bordelon to start to stretch it out from 3/10 back to 7.
Get a chance to see how the handling is from on board. Right through the rumble strips, everything's pretty much equal with the two drivers there through there.
About 7/10 as you see them run over the edge of the rumble strips, and how close the line clearance is to the very bottom of the racing surface. And this is a balancing act in itself when you're trying to build a race car and set it up in turn.
I don't know if you could see what I was talking about earlier in the track map was corner 10 there as they went through. It's off camera. It falls away from you. You could kind of see that through that onboard camera a little bit.
And it's really tested the drivers, absolutely. Nani Mador is slowly clawing his way into this fight once more. 1.4 seconds back, you see him in the red and white car in the backdrop. This grouping could soon have 3 cars if Valancia elects to go. So listen on board. You see the difference in lines alone. Seems right now he feels a little more comfortable cradling the curve compared to Bourdon, who is keeping his distance to them.
Yeah, watch the hands. The hands tell a lot of how a car is handling, what a driver's struggling with. There's a little bit of correction there, but not a whole lot. But you can watch the hands, and that'll tell you a lot. Look at them back and forth.
Yeah, this is for the past 3 laps, whether from him or Refrene, that's been a massive thing when it comes to their cars, and that's where they've lost the most time. A little bit deep in the brakes as well right there, trying to send it. That trying to lunge ahead to pick up time.
Love that combination.
Almost worked.
7 and 8.
A little bit more stable in the hands too as a result there. In fact, both of them have now grown the gap back on Mador to about 1.7 seconds. Meanwhile, Shenteg has grown the overall gap to about 3 seconds. These cars have also swapped, as mentioned before. Ben made that pass about 5 laps ago. Now, he looks to try and find a way to cut ahead. The problem has been, Ben got about 2.6 seconds back in the race lead. Then he started going back again. It's where he's almost hit a wall in terms of lap progression. He's quicker on the track, stopwatch-wise, but he has been able to eat into the actual gap in whole consistently.
Yeah, and you know, I thought we might see him away from Kevin Racine, but Racine's holding his own right there with him.
I mean, for some of the drivers, right, it's a good spot to be able to save, as mentioned. Andre again hitting a little bit of the curve there. And there's different methods to that you have to keep in mind. Some of the drivers like to try and back up the entries, let it roll a little bit more. Others like to utilize the clutch. Not too much of the use of that clutch for some of these drivers I've noticed based on some of the inputs. But there's a lot, and I mean your full throttle use when it comes to this Bentley in a lot of these corners. In fact, for the most part, he is not getting towards 100% of the throttle in some of them.
I got told once, you're either on the gas or you're on the brake. Everything else is just wasting time.
Interesting saying, and it's really been emphasized, especially those who have the downforce to utilize it and have set the traction control to be able to utilize your comfortability for the speed.
It'd be interesting to see the setups, and we talked about that being a medium downforce, medium suspension racetrack. It'd just be curious to see how these drivers did set their cars up. It's one of the things that I think you get an opportunity, especially in real world racing, if you get that opportunity to go to the paddock and talk to the teams and the drivers, you learn a lot. It's really cool to find out. Then it makes the race even that much more enjoyable, if they're willing to share some of that secret information with you, of course.
And that's the critical thing. based on the environments and some teams, that's a difficult thing, right? Because you don't want to give away all the speed bits and say, here's all the speed bits. Guess what? Person then has the speed bits, they take it to somewhere possibly, or it ends up becoming more wide known, and guess what? And you're behind trying to find the next speed bits.
Yeah, they don't call them secrets for nothing, right? Hey, you know what? I think this could keep developing. These two can start mixing up just a little bit more. As you saw earlier, Medor, we may see Medor get into this before it's over yet. If these two can just kind of get into battling a little bit more, folks.
Medor's keeping it about 2 seconds back for reference in terms of the average. Last time by, the 145s. 2/10 on average right now or so off the lead pace. Tough thing for them.
And inside the top 20, nobody has pitted yet.
Never keep lunge again, Valancia, again missing a little bit of the mark. Costs him a little bit of time as a result on the corner exit. A little more shallower entry in the clip of the curve this time, coming out of Capsa. Quickly approaching the halfway mark of this race. 38 minutes to go on the clock. Keep in mind that the current Pro-Am leader is still Valancia. He's built up about a 9/10 of a second cushion now on Tommy Landry. Pro-Am lead continuing to settle on in for Shentake, about 3 seconds up the track compared to the 99 of Baven. Here's a look now at the battle still for second. Baven, once again, eats a little bit into the gap. He picked up about a 10.5 last time in terms of lap time. This time around, he lost another couple 100s back.
Yeah, he turns to the left just a little bit sooner than Baven, setting up for corner one.
See now a bit of a lunge again, Valancia again.
Okay, he's starting to get a little antsy now. You can start to see that he's perhaps finding that place where he has the advantage, and he's going to try to make a move on Bourdon, I think, sooner than later. He's just getting a little bit more antsy back there.
He's thought about that poke at least the past 4 or 5 laps. This time, not too much of a bobble. Will this help Valancia get himself into position to send it for a lunge? Possibly in the next lap or two. We'll see. Technical sector 2, lost a little bit of a wiggle again. Still half a second back.
Yeah, he's got to get a little closer yet, or else it's a dive bomb.
And it looks like Valancia's starting to change his line in particular in this section. That time a little bit more of a better arc. That helped him stabilize the time he picked up in the previous corners. He's gained a 10th as a result of that better line, and now looks a little bit more comfortable in terms of the braking mark. Not going as deep.
Do my eyes deceive me, or is Medor becoming the factor we mentioned a couple laps ago?
Well, he's picking up a decent amount of time in this sector in particular compared to these cars. Problem has been the chicane has lost him all the time back. He's still 2 seconds behind, so not too much if they go side by side.
Yeah.
Of course, that will let him in, as we've seen. Lunge within 3/10 though. Will this lunge be on? See the difference. In terms of his previous laps now. Valancia, 145 flat, 4/10 quicker than Medor. Trying to get himself lined up. Can't get there, and back near dead even in terms of speed. A little bit of a different approach though, because of that change in driving style that you have to be able to adapt to. Adaptability is so critical if you want to maximize speed.
You do. Bourdon looked like he was a little bit rough through 1 and 2 there, a little bit correction of the swing wheel a couple of times. You kind of wonder, is he possibly having some tire issues here with the halfway point coming up?
Oh, really deep, Valancia. That cost Valancia, though. That was way too deep. And you're mentioning tires? Sends like that will absolutely hurt the tires. And he just lost all the time he's picked up past lap and a half with 2 late breaks.
Temperature's gone up as well as we run into these afternoon hours here.
The critical thing to consider, absolutely. You see some of the temperature conditions, 26 degrees Celsius. I believe that's actually a little bit lower because it's around, 534 in sim. However, More rubber buildup you can see with some of the marks and scuffs around the circuit. And while it's the optimal racing conditions still, a fall off for a lot of the cars compared to the personal best as much as half a second, in some cases about a full second in some packs.
You look at the track map and just look at all those cars weaving their way through those last few corners from 12 on. It's a big pack of cars and good, interesting battles, I'm sure, going on through there.
Of note, Marc-Antoine Landry has just came into the pit lane, so the window for some of the cars wanting to go half and half is open. If anyone, the other groupings of cars elect to take it.
Looks like the one has also decided to come in valet.
So a few drivers are electing to mix things up. Here's a look back to Brazil. Still has the purple lap for the race, a 1:44.2. Pace has really dropped off though, even with the trap factoring in, as mentioned, about 0.6 the fall off. But it's closing now. Remember, they were about stagnating at 2.8 seconds back. It's down to 1.8 now.
Good chance we're going to see a race of this yet before checkered flag waves.
3/10 lost last time, but then he's going to have to sacrifice a bit of time. There's a red mark on his respective lap with that exit. See if it impacts him now as a result of the 99. He's now 2 seconds back as a result of a little bit of the runoff. Still 1.8 seconds back regardless, down to 1.7 with a good exit. But the off track still able to pick up a decent amount of time on the circuit. Another 2/10 picked up that time. He's nearly in drafting distance. By the way, for reference, Valancia dropping back.
Valancia dropping back, and Medor also looks like he's lost some ground to these two.
He's starting to get that tire fall off, indeed.
And that's what I was just wondering about. Is it just a moment of cool down a little bit, let the tires cool off a little bit, and then have another run at it before the end?
To think, right? Because here's the tough thing. With how pit stop sequences can go, it's not a good idea to take tires, let's say. Especially if you're, say, a class leader like Valancia. Taking tires is a massive amount of time lost compared to those who will take the quick stop about 10, 15, 20 seconds.
Absolutely. You know, unless everybody else is going to swap tires, there's no way you're gonna gain by doing so. You're right.
A couple drivers are currently out of the race for reference, by the way. Trepanier, DNF Guido also out, Safe4's also been in the pit lane for 2 laps now. The rest of the drivers are running on circuit on the edges of the lead lap currently. Here's the look still of the battle for 10th. This is still for the Pro M race lead. It's been one of the tighter battles for the season so far. Tommy Landry keeping the pressure up amongst them, 0.6 back.
Good to see this battle going on because I got that Tommy Landry. I made note of it, so I can't change it now. It's on record.
Halfway that time around the racetrack, signaled through the sim for the drivers. Now, just less than 30 minutes to work with. As well, there may have been potential issues when it comes to a couple of the drivers. In regards to the pit issue, it appears, is the clarification. We've seen that car stopped in the pit entry. Here it was involving a pedal issue, possibly, as a result with the contact.
Not a great run to this time, at least, for our points leader in the Pro-Ams. Keep an eye on where he may be.
Yeah. Gentag, though, we mentioned the tire fall off. This is getting really tough for Gentag. It's similar to what we've seen last time, in fact, I think, with him, too. Started really lightning quick, really falls off towards the back end of the run once the fuel burn starts to come in a little bit. And now, second and third place cars are nearly in the draft again.
It won't be long now, I don't think, Justin, before we see this battle for the lead. You know, it is a long way to go in that sense, and a gap is closing quickly.
3 seconds for reference. Dubé is also approaching them too. Don't forget about that Ferrari. He's been as much as 3 seconds back to second and third. He's also within the draft. This train nearly 4 cars deep again. Here's a look at Dubé in particular. 1:45.1 last time, 0.3 quicker than the next car in front and the race leader.
All in the camera shot there, your top 4. It's just going to be, I think, a good run to the checker.
Here's a look again at the battle for 5th position. Battle's really starting to intensify. Bordelon and Valancia 7 seconds back out of the lead conversation currently. Strategy could still potentially move them up a little bit based on how things have factored in. Especially since we've turned about 18 laps, a lot to consider, you'd have to think, for a couple of these drivers currently on the racetrack. In checking with some of the total stint lengths, for reference sake, mind you, remember some of the drivers elected to pit very early on within the first 12 minutes? Well, when you consider the lap times, that's about 5 laps in, so that's around that mark. Around 4 or 5 to go, it looks like. Some of the drivers could stretch it.
Yeah, that's... You don't want to get too much beyond that point, I would think. And then we'll have to see how that all cycles through when those ones that had the early stops, if that's going to pay off for them when we get that cycle through.
Here's a look at Landry once again still, yeah. By the way, Peze has come into the pit lane, so some of the Pro-Am leaders need to peel on in. Also, this sector, Raven is within the 1 second drafting range. Racine holding on, Racine back towards that edge. Dubé also within that range. Landry still out within the range to pounce. Here's a look at the 99. Now the pressure is on if you're Shenteg to keep up the consistency.
Such a long sweeping corner. But you want to tighten through the first part of it, but then you've got to get that car to unwind and come right out to the outside like you see there. If you keep it in too tight, you'll kill that speed coming off the free.
Especially keep in mind as well, look at the track map. A little bit of traffic is up the road. Become a bit of a factor for the battle for the race lead here with about 26 minutes to go on the clock. Keep in mind as well, the drivers with early pit stop, Susi, 18th, Bordeaux is 1.3 seconds ahead of him as well with the stop in 17th on the circuit. Last time by, for reference, those drivers ran in the 145s and 146s, however, lap times. Look at the gap though, Bourvin within 6/10, right there looking to pounce.
Just amazing how much he's been able to close in. And one of those lap cars just in front of them. We'll have to wait and see if Shenteg decides to pit or stay out. It's only the one car, so it's not a big deal. But sometimes, you know, you can use those lap traffics to your advantage, and again, sometimes they become the pick for the other driver, and you lose that advantage. So he's only got one car to contend with, and I've got this feeling we'll see, depending on where they catch him, perhaps step aside and let this battle go through. That's what obviously Shenteg looks for.
Could be expected. We see the traffic be fairly cordial with regards to this fight. Still about 10 car lanes up the track. And trying to get himself built up with the run a little bit deeper, a little bit to the curve. That cost him some time in the Lexus. 10th lost, still picks it up on the power down though. Looking to pull back still. Half a second out the distance. Shenteg looks to go deeper into the corner. Ben makes it stick though. Gets good rotation through sector 2.
It just seems like all of a sudden the bit's between the teeth, because look how far back Racine is to this battle now. They're losing Racine.
Thing in fact has been picked up by Dubé. Here's the look at the battle still for 5th. Jay tries to arc himself around as well. All sorts of battles starting to break out with 24 minutes to go, and a lot of thoughts ahead for some of these cars. A little bit steep. The edge of the curb again, and again Valancia loses some time.
You know, that's what I love about both EGT3 Challenge Pro Racing and this racetrack. There are battles all the way through this field, and we're getting a chance to watch it unfold here just into the final almost 20 minutes coming up for this race. Great battles.
One's head starting to get a little bit on a swivel. Then is now 1.7 seconds back. Then again rotating towards the edge of the curbing. Traffic now 5 car lengths ahead. For reference, that's the BMW of Barrett. Amongst those who have already taken their service. There he goes. Blue flags pop up. And not able to utilize him for the draft. If anything, neither of them picked him up for the draft. But then trying to go a little bit deeper on the brakes still. Now electing to try and keep it within his windshield. About 2/10 up.
For Shentag, that was the ideal place to catch lap traffic, and as you know, the gentleman driver moved to step to the side and let them go through. It's a perfect spot for Shentag.
Big thing is for the 99, though, he's been pushing really hard on the gas. By the way, remember how you mentioned Madorn become a factor? With the fall off for the 5th and 6th place cars, he's there, he's in drafting range.
And so maybe he did. Maybe he laid off a little bit, let the tires cool off, and made a challenge here in the final few minutes of the race. That's a possibility.
Here's a look back at the race lead still. 2-second buffer for the top two currently on the track. And has not been able to get himself close enough for a passing attempt yet. He's got it within 2/10, but right about there is where he started to struggle a bit with some of the aero weight possibly factoring in. This draft to pick him up. A little bit of a weave for the Lexus. McLaren still holds firm with the clean air in front.
Well, now, Shentag in that McLaren, up to now, he's just had racetrack in front of him to worry about. Now he has racetrack behind him to worry about, which means, what is he doing? He's looking in the mirrors a little bit more possibly. You don't want to do that, but the pressure's there. Govan's putting it on, and Shentag, he's not got to falter. He's got to keep looking ahead. Don't look back. Do not look back. You got it.
I think the pit stop strategy, based on what we're seeing, though, going to be one of the biggest parts of how this battle for the race lead could play out. Unless Bavan can try and pull it away on the track itself. Still not close enough for the lunge. Again, about a 10th to the back bumper. Again, not close enough to make an attempt into turn 1. The way he's been trying to get early in the gas, though, right about here. That's where he's lost his time, and it's taken the full lap to gain it back.
Yeah, you saw how wide Shentag took that into corner 1, trying to, again, maximize. Look at him. He's just trying to maximize as much as he can on the outside of the racetrack to straighten up these corners.
On the inside curving still. Then, deeper on the brakes, a little bit wider. Tries to go deeper into the middle of the apex. Diamonds it off. Not able to keep the power down, though, to reel him back in still. Heading towards the next good passing opportunity coming out of Campsa in the next couple of corners. Van in a great spot if he can nail this corner. When it's too deep, Van has to check up to avoid the sand.
He might... No, I was going to say, yeah, I was going to say he might have to look to the inside here.
But for a split second, realized that little bobble cost him. And both of these cars, mind you, are pushing so hard they're losing all that buffer time we just mentioned. They've lost 3/10 this lap alone for the both of them to everybody else. Racine and Dubé are about to make it a 4-car battle again.
Absolutely, Racine and Dubé, they just, yeah, guys, keep fighting. We're catching up to you. You know, they, like I just said a couple laps ago, where's Racine? He's out of it for the moment, but this battle is bringing him back in. Oh, see the move on Racine. He was protecting the inside of Dubé, trying to get past him, so now that's going to hurt their battle for the overall. Look at this move to the inside. How's it look? Not going to pull it off. Nope, not enough. Not close enough yet.
Good respect shown, not able to send it in fully. Backs it up to wait for the next corner. Bavan tries to hold on to the back end. Behind the Racine has been able to hold on for third currently. Dubé forced to back up himself. Up the road, Bavan trying to set it up again for the start of Sector 2, up to Repsol. Has to back up the corner instead. Shentag got loose. Racine, meanwhile, nearly planted. Here's the look of the battle for the race lead still, and the difference in the tires. Look at the rear end of the McLaren.
That looked like he went for a little bit later apex on that attempt through 10. Didn't pay off for him. Sorry, not 10, but now through 6 and 7.
Big picture of the battle for the race lead. Small picture of the battle for third position just behind them. Positions on the podium, still scrapping out. Paven with a struggle on the exit this time. Lost his time he built up the past couple laps. And meanwhile, has built up a decent cushion again to Debay. Be able to get breathing room for the next lap. For about 6 minutes at least until the start of the later edges of the pit window. That's going to be a major factor. That's about 3 laps time.
Yeah, and I don't think lap traffic should be an issue at all in their decision. It's just going to come down to whether or not they want to pit, when they want to pit. And the question would be, will Van follow him in and keep that strategy, 1-2, or stay out?
That's going to be the big thing. And remember, there's already been trouble as a result of drivers trying the different strats. The race leader staying a little bit patient. They're not able to close up in the Ferrari. A big mistake for Paven. That will lose him tons of time. Nearly overshot the corner.
He's working it hard now.
He did pick up an off track as a result of that mistake. However, still stays within that 1 second. And now nearly to the back end of the 99 draft once again. Debay, though, he's been one of the drivers who has been not afraid to lick the stamp and send it. Will he get the chance to try and send it through the mailbox without knocking the mailbox over?
And this is great because we have 2 distinct battles and both are podium consequences. So it's just great watching the picture in the picture, both these battles unfold.
Debay get himself a good run. He's thinking about a send. He's 2/10 back, not close enough.
Yeah, just a little too far back.
By the way, Debedin, who had really gained himself a fair bit of time on the track, has just elected to take his pit stop. Pit window is now being taken by some of the Pro-Am drivers on the racetrack. And on the track map with some of the drivers rolling into the respective stalls. Here's a look now still at that battle for third, big picture, battle for the race lead, little picture. The duck-ins for the top 4 currently. Major positionings quite yet in terms of the draft, it looks like, to set up a move yet.
Just a little too far back for that.
The major thing with how aggressive some of the battling has been is the major differences some of the drivers may take in regards to how much they rely on the traction control and the assist. Some may say, let's try and get as much grip as possible. Others try to rely on the feet, rely on the skills, but then try to rely on the inside. He gets the right side for the race lead. Shentag looks to make it work on the outside groove in Repsol. But then sticks it to the inside, tries to clear. Near contact in the seat. The send back by Shentag. The crossover. But then hits him. He turns him. They slam at the bottom. Here comes Racine and Dubé. They take away the top 2 spots. They almost save it as Paven clears for third.
Great saves by both those drivers, but they are finding themselves 3rd and 4th through that.
Oh, and Dubé knows the race lead is on. This is one of his best runs of the season. He's been involved in some contact with the battles before. Now he has a chance to try and win the race. Early going in this one with under 15 minutes to go on the clock.
I can't watch.
Still a pit stop to factor.
Exactly.
4 cars under a blanket.
Unbelievable racing. How can you ask for anything better than this? Penultimate round, and they are just giving it everything they've got.
Dubé trying to set himself up for the start of this next lap. Will anyone, after all that bumping and banging, elect to peel on off and into the lane? Looking towards the right side, no stops taking him out to the top 4. Dubé with a good chance to get the draft. Paven getting the draft from Dubé. Shentag getting the triple toe. That time by 145 to the leaders.
They always say it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. So now Paven and Shentag, after being 1st and 2nd for so long, find themselves 3rd and 4th, and they've got a big struggle now to try to get past these 2.
One of the craziest races of the season. And we mentioned how busy Laguna Seca got. This one has been busy. for the battle for the race lead for the past 10 laps. For those just tuning in, it was Shentag who led until a few minutes ago before contact with Bavin. Dubé and Racine are now battling for the lead. Racine got loose. Here comes Dubé to the right side. Dubé tries to make it work through seat, forced to back off as Bavin forced to back up a little bit on the brake.
And backing up seems to be Shentag through this. There's something wrong with his car from that contact.
Shentag last time got the slowest of the times. Mine is still held onto the edge of the draft though before the pit stop. Dubé nearly to the back bumper of the 223 once again. There's a little bit of the peak, not close enough, Dubé. Oh, look at that though. Once again, the car in front struggling. The Bentley again struggling on that exit for the first part of the chicanes. And keep in mind, this all started with this drama just moments ago. Here's a look at the replay.
Shentag tried to protect the crossover and got into each other.
That cost them 2 spots apiece. And as a result, we're seeing trying to run away. They make the mandatory pit stop. Behind them, Belanger, Bordeaux, several others already complete their service. Bruno Levac should say. The last of the drivers yet to take service so far as Bavin nearly gets the back end of the 70 again.
Definitely on the charge. He wants to go back up to the top of the leaderboard.
Then not trying to make more contact, obviously. However, pace difference starting to pop up a little bit. Ben was the second quickest in this train. Shentag once again had some struggles, was the slowest of the top 4. Over nearly to the sand as Racine builds up a half a second buffer.
Racine tasted the champagne a couple races ago. He liked it. He's after more.
Looking to get away. Van, a little bit of a wiggle once again. Pit window is open. Here's the look from the back end of Racine.
I'm just going to say now who is going to take that or who's going to wait a little bit longer yet.
Remember, Shentag's got the cleanest of the air for majority of the race, as in burning the most fuel as a result of being on his own. Bavin had some draft at some points. Racine had some draft at some points. Dubé picked up draft as of late. They continue to stay alone on the racetrack. Does anyone behind them elect to peel in is going to be another question. No peel-offs yet for the top 8 or so currently on the circuit. Here's Bavin again on board. Again, trying to regather some of the composure, not able to get within the 4/10 all of a sudden. In fact, he's starting to miss some of the apexes. That's another major mistake for the 99 and lost him 2/10 again.
Yeah, those top 4 are indeed starting to spread out now, are they not? Look at that.
Now remember, Shentag, as we talked about with the clean air, despite that, lost all that tire advantage in terms of that grip. You have to wonder how Racine and Dubé's grip now, compared to that, they had all that time where they just stayed in a line, worked together, closed on up. Compare that to the 2 drivers who just made contact. You have to wonder if their tires may be a little bit warmer from it.
Good point. Could very well be the case.
Under 10 minutes to go, up on the clock. Keep in mind, Bordeaux and Mador are coming as well. They've reeled in 3 seconds in the past 10 minutes as a result of all the bumping and baiting, so this, depending on how they play their stops, could become even busier. Speaking of drivers keeping busy, let's take a look at the drivers who are up at the front of the pitting group. It's still Belanger, the first of those who have taken service, way up the track currently by about, I'd say, 18 seconds. Then you have Bordeaux and Soucy grouped together. Then you put in drivers like Aurelie looking to recover from the contact earlier. He's looking to try and find around Thibodeau in interclass traffic. So a lot of the competitors just trying to get themselves a lot of recovery from some of the troubles earlier that forced them maybe to elect to try something different.
Yeah, and looking at the leaderboard too and the track map and that Pro-Am lead by Tommy Landry. And last time I looked at the track map, it looked like he had a bit of a margin back to Boudreaux running in second in class, number 163.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Levique in that pit at the time. Bruno Levique specifically 13 seconds back. Then Bordeaux there 5. That's where the 18-second margin estimate is. Here's a look at Dubé in the middle of Sector 2 now. Keeping an eye towards that edge of the track still amongst them. They have ditched Shenche. Bordeaux and Mador have been closing, or were for a little bit, before Mador just trying to make the pass.
Yeah, their best chance right now is to just try to work together single file with time running out. It's a tall order, but that would be their only chance right now. And if they can't make that happen, then of course, Mador, go for it. You want points.
Road to Geeks is also just pitting, by the way. That means we're down to about 13 drivers yet to take service in these cars. No major lunge from Mador. While he's been antsy to try and make the passes, he has been smart and tactical on that. Dubé trying to go for a little lunge in a very tight section to make a pass, and he just lost all the time.
He lost a lot of time on that one. It might be for Bovan, though, as a run here on the front straight, see if he can gain any position or any track on him.
Tries to get a little bit of the draft, but not too much. Again, this is a tough thing. Yes, this is a good passing chance, but you need to be within that 2/10 or so to really get the confidence set. Mador is within the buffer. Mador thought about it. Mador elects to stay behind instead. Katjunas behind them has come into pit. Now it's down to 12 yet to take service with about 7 minutes to go.
Mador keeps having a look at the inside there.
Problem is, that lost him all the time again. Lots of bobbles for about a corner and a half. Meanwhile, looking towards that direction, Dubé had some more struggles of his own. This has been also a critical thing. That long run pace has been the critical thing to be able to win races, right? But Dubé, you cannot afford to make major mistakes here and now.
Dubé's best finish, got 6th so far on the season. Obviously nailing it if he can get to the podium on this one.
Absolutely, as the door doesn't nail that corner from 6th spot. All the way up to the paint. Might have been amongst those trying to make pounces.
Yeah, he was way out there. Way out there.
As a result, Mador has lost a lot of the opportunities to pounce in that group. No stops in this pack still. Dubé, though, within the 0.3 of a second, trying to pull away from the 99. Shentag has lost touch and then some. Bordeaux has just hit, though. Mador is now up to 5th. Mador stays up for a lap.
Just so, well, look at how close Dubé is getting there through 1 and 2.
Dubé right to the back bumper, in fact. Will descend beyond defensive line from Racine. Dubé tries an outside, goes for the cross. No. At the checkup, here's the look from the rear wing. Dubé still tries to keep it high side camp.
And Bovan's closing in again because of this.
That's the main thing. If you don't have cooperation, what else will try and take advantage of said scuffles. Speaking of scuffles, how about scuffles with cars coming out of the pit lane? This is Marchand, who lost a little bit of time before. He nearly spins it around. I'll hold on to it, though. That is right in front of Bordeaux, who just exited the pit lane.
Tell you what, I sure hope I see these three come in together in the pits and keep this battle going. But wow, 4 minutes. You got to think they need to be coming in soon.
It's for the closest margin for victory possibly on the season, with how things have broken out here today, to say at the very least. The closest finishes 0.6 of a second at Mazzano earlier this campaign. Couple more laps to go. No P-loss for the top three yet again. They're trying to go to the distance, possibly to the 2 to go mark.
Possibly. Dubé had a little bit of a, you can see that through the chicane there, a little bit of a bobble. You just got to wonder what's he thinking. I mean, the driver in front and the driver behind have stood on the top step of the podium. He wants it now.
And George just tapped out for reference. He's into the pit lane from the top 5 as well. Moisson also coming into the pit lane. Tommy Landry behind them. Dubé, not as close as last time. Still a defensive line for a moment. Thought about by Racine. The last cars yet to pit on the circuit. These drivers, Shentag, and a couple others in Marchand and Bruno Levac. Everybody else has taken the mandatory stop. Again, by the time they peel in, it will be very close to 1 lap to go.
Becoming a nail-biter.
This is the furthest I think some of these drivers, in fact, have tried to really stretch these tanks this season in terms of the actual time of the clock. Some have gone around 3.5 minutes or so. We're pushing towards 2 minutes by the time they reach the pit box as Dubé tries to send it.
Just got to believe they've got to be coming in.
Up towards that sector for that respective stop at the end of the chicanes here.
Here we go.
Then, again towards the back end, tries to take a poke, tries to give a nudge, tries to push ahead. Here they go to the pit lane. And Baven's going forward. He's going to the white flag lap. Near contact at the pit lane as Racine has backed it up and braked very early. Near dead stop to the pit limiter as Baven keeps it going. And this will be intriguing now. This means 2 to go.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. He's got to get around and see where this cycles. I can't believe they just didn't all come in together.
Here's the big thing. He'll be able to send it much more aggressively compared to what we just seen from everybody else in the line. Shentag gained all the time he had lost, mind you, Glenn, because he had that 1.7 seconds. He could go near full throttle on the access road.
That's right. Ben knows how fast he can go, and he couldn't perhaps do that necessarily where he wanted to. They're out. Yep, they're out now. So maybe this is his idea, his strategy, get in this fast lap.
Right now, it's about a gap of maybe 38 seconds for them currently. Racine did hold on for second on track now. Dubé and Shentag also lined up in station. Check that 39 seconds as time equalizes itself out. That is about a 5-second cushion ahead of those who elected to mix up the strategy calls before. They still have some traffic mixed in, keep in mind. That's where you see one of the Orion cars staying in this respective pack.
And this is what you don't know, where you're going to come back into the fold, right? You get some lap traffic right in front of you. Could really mess up your race here for the podium.
Don't want to end up doing the aggressive move too early, as now, with about 20 seconds on the clock, Baven is coming in. There he goes on the lower hand corner of the screen. Bruno Levac just have it to serve a penalty just now with the stop and go 30 seconds. 10 seconds to go in the clock. White flag coming this time. Final lap just has been triggered. Where will everyone else in the pack figure themselves out to be? Will Baven be able to cycle ahead of the rest of the pack to hold on? Will Dubé become the leader?
Getting to his stall now as the leaders are just going to come through those last couple of corners. It's going to be close.
I'm in the box right now. Delta on average about 20 or so seconds. Quickly off and away with the fuel. 6 seconds. Down to 5. Down the front stretch for the white flag lap. Baven trying to get onto the power. Down to 2 seconds. Here comes Dubé from the left of him. Baven has the preferred line. Dubé tries to power it to the first corner. Dubé tries to clear. Baven tries to keep it side by side and does. Baven clears on by for the race lead.
How about that? Wow.
Lap car moves out of the way. Baven goes defensive. Dubé with a chance for the win. Goes for the send. The Repsol, he backs it up. Racine waits in the wings of the popcorn seat. Near contact again. Dubé tries to go for it.
How badly do you think he wants it? That first win for the season. Come on.
He absolutely wants it. His best position in yet all campaign. Van looks to try and lock things forward for the points. One more major passing section to go. Van's been able to build up a good buffer. Is it enough though? Dubé goes deep. They all go deep. Not towards the back end of the 99 though. A couple more chicanes to go for Bavin.
All that's left is dive bombs. That's all that's left.
Will Dubé dare to do it? He missed the apex.
Yep.
That may have cost him. Again, hard into the brakes again. Racine Denuri to the back bumper. Meanwhile, coming out of the final corner, Bavin holds on. He blinks the lights in glory. He wins in Barcelona.
What a race. Wow.
One of the closest margins of the season. Bavin, Dubé, Racine, Shenteg, top 4 on the track. Unbelievable, to say the very least, as the checker flag waves. We look at the rest of the top 10 cross. Moisan holding on in front of a train of others. Give credit to David Susi. Had some struggles early today. He finishes in the top 10. Bourdois, though, with his early call to pit, finishes 11th. But it's Melançon. After some of his strategies, he picks up the Pro-Am victory, with others such as Tommy Landry and Beaudry dropping several seconds back in the end.
And Melançon picking up his 3rd win on the season.
Incredible pace when it comes to Melançon. Good recovery drive from Mallory after some of the bumping in the undercut call as a result of said bumping and banging. 25 drivers take the checker flag in the end. Clermont and Barrett, the last amongst them. But once again, it's Jonathan Bavin who picks up the victory today. Unbelievable, to say the very least, how this race fared out to the final lap in the first sector, and it came down to pit strategy too.
Great run to the checkered, and I think staying out was the key.
Absolutely, and it adds that very enthralling layer, I think you can say, for the finale now for Zandvoort. With how things fare out once official classification comes in, Bavin has really solidified himself into a great spot to say, I'm ready to lift the crown again as a result of the struggles with drivers like Bourdois towards the back end of the top 12.
Yeah, I think I can't wait to check the map on the points. It could just be a green flag and we're good.
Now, keep in mind as we continue to look at some of the various battles around this racetrack too, you consider things too when it comes to the Pro-Am side. It was a little bit more quiet today because in particular, Bruno Levite, we mentioned his name amongst those really trying to stretch it. He had a 60-second time penalty in sim at the end of the race, 25th unofficially.
Yeah, that's going to hurt. I mean, with how tight we talked about the points battle in coming into Barcelona, that's going to hurt. I mean, and what can you say about this race in Barcelona? I don't think it disappointed at all. It was a great race from start to finish. A little bit of jockeying and bumping and banging at the start of it, and everybody started to settle down. And right to the end, that's where it got all intense again. It was a great round all the way through for Barcelona. I tell you, I just love the racing on this racetrack, and again, love the racing from these drivers in this series.
And I think the main thing to consider too, in both of those battles as a result, it's the top 15 in the points distribution, right, for the classes you have to consider when it comes to the official rules. For reference, when it comes to the official side of things, now that how things have cycled around, it's worth considering with some of these respective drivers and some of the time penalties to factor in. Drivers like Bourdois may get shuffled up a spot or so. That's going to be something. I think those ever spots may come down to be the major difference towards the end in some cases here.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and just looking at a pass right there, you know, that Mador put on, It's a tight racetrack. I think for the most part, it was a clean race. Obviously, we had some bumping and banging, some dramatic bumping and banging at the top of the order, which had a big effect on the way the race ran out to the checkered flag. But overall, I think a good run. But this is, again, going back into the head games, into the final round, and you count all 8 rounds. So that's why we said this is critical in qualifying to get at the top of this starting order and to stay there here at Barcelona, and it's coming down to one more to go.
There's a lot to consider, a lot to discuss when it comes to the championship. We mentioned that point differential entering today was about 31. It was critical for drivers such as Eric Bourdouin to score strong points today, to say the very least. The difference on that mark, about 19 points the separation, first to 10th in terms of the scoring differential. In our words, depending on how official scoring comes into play, especially after some of that contact, that's going to be the critical thing. Boven may be close, if not secure, towards that. But again, it comes towards the thought of the official clarification towards the end in scoring, once reviews come in.
Yeah, everything is, of course, unofficial until everything is reviewed. Then it's official, and we can go from there and set up for the final round. That's for sure.
Yep. Let's quickly discuss Zandvoort. When it comes to that track, it will be the season finale. It's a track that brings its own difficult moments. That will be taking place May the 6th, once again on EGT Canada, to be able to keep an eye on the action for what's expected to be a potential crazy finish to the EGT3 Challenge Pro season. A lot to think about when it comes to the finale coming up in a few weeks, but it's time to say goodbye. For my broadcast partner tonight in Glenn Butt, for Steve Proudly, my name's Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Congratulations once again to Jonathan Boven, official race winner, 0.6 of a second. The margin towards the checker flag over Dubai and Racine, one of the closest finishes of the season, setting up a dramatic end of the campaign.